G'day guys. Well, today we're going to talk about something that we often encounter as a snake catcher. Believe it or not, it's bird netting. Stuff you buy down at your local hardware store. Quite often people use this to cover up their fruit trees, vegetable patches, rose bushes, anything like that in their garden to keep birds out. And yeah, it does a great job of that. But the other problem with this stuff is that it traps native wildlife, in particular our reptiles. What you're about to see is a 1.2 metre brown snake that got caught up in this. A lady went out and check her garden in the morning, water her plants, and sure enough, a strawberry patch, yeah, a bit of a surprise in there. Have a look what happened. So tell us the story about our strawberry patch brown snake, Ian.
Yeah, this little fella, he's I'd say around 1.2, 1.3 metres. A lady went out this morning to her vegetable garden, had trouble with starlings going in there and picking all her fruit, plus a few other birds. But this little fella, he was caught up in the netting that she put over there to protect her strawberries. It's a common occurrence, unfortunately. It doesn't only catch snakes, but all sorts of other wildlife, lizards and things like that. And occasionally raptors, birds of prey, see things like this as an easy meal. So they'll come down and get caught in the netting as well while they're trying to get this little fella or a lizard. So what we've got to do now is basically try and free it. As you can see, it's a tangled mess. We've got to free it out of here safely without getting bitten. Key word. It's generally a fairly tedious job and something that should be done by two people, but I've been doing it for a while, so hopefully things will be alright. The idea of it is, and he's sort of wiggling around now, but I've got the tail end solid out the way and the body's restrained so he can't pull through anymore. And what I've basically got to do is try and cut through the netting using a blunt pair of pointy scissors. If that makes sense? No, it doesn't.
That's obviously so you don't stab the snake.
Yeah, I've got to slide it down along the body in between the scales, so instead of being pointy it doesn't stab into the animal, and hopefully if he stays still instead of jerking around we can get down into it. But we just slide it down gently along the scales so it goes between the scales and the netting, and then we cut it away. It's quite a big ball of netting, so it's a little bit difficult.
Was the client surprised to see a snake in the netting?
Yeah, fairly well, but whether the snakes just come in there to pick up a little bit of water or whether there was a rodent activity around through the veg patch, which sometimes also happens. You can see down the bottom here it's pretty tight around the body. So I've cut it away. You can see how the netting actually cuts right into it. Does a lot of damage. Alright, we'll get a bit more of it done down through here. Fortunately, this netting's a little bit easier to work with and free the animal out of it. The cotton stuff is pretty bad. Does a lot of damage to snakes, to lizards, and as I mentioned earlier, raptors, birds of prey. Does a lot of major damage. They get hooked up into it, and unless it's freed pretty well straight away, they can die of heat stress within a matter of minutes.
Obviously, like the one you got last week, you'll hang on to it for a couple of days and make sure it's in good health before it's released.
Yeah, you can see here how the netting, and this has just happened overnight. You can see how the netting's cutting into the animal and doing a lot of damage. So we've got to make sure that the animal hasn't been adversely affected and it's going to survive. So yeah, we do tend to hang on to it for a couple of days and just make sure that it is okay. And if so, then it gets released. You can see it's just one little strand there that's holding it still. So you can see the damage it's doing all the way down. So yeah,
It's like a rubber band around your finger. It's going to cut off the circulation.
It is. And there we go. Bob's your auntie. One load of rubbish. And one, yep, easy 1.2 metre eastern or common brown snake. And there goes the phone. That's another person with another snake problem. Here we go again.
Well, there you have it. This stuff's lethal. Anyway, I'm glad to say that after a few days of looking after that snake, it was released and went back into the wild, and it survived. Unfortunately for some of the others we encounter though, that's not the case. Now think of an alternative method you could use. I've been to some houses and some people use like a square type grid mesh. Sure, it's a little bit heavier duty, it costs a bit more money. Throw it on some hinges, it's easy to use. Large enough holes that if an animal does go into it, such as a snake, it can get itself back out without getting tangled. And at the end of the day, you can still keep your vegetables. Anyway, that sums it up for today's episode. Tell us what you think, comment below, tell us what you want to see, and please share the video. And thanks for watching.